Howdy, friends, and welcome to The Story Field. This is a podcast where we talk about business, faith, and life in general.
Okay, so here's the deal. We want you to be encouraged. We want you living in hope. This life we live is complex. It's hard at times. At The Story Field, you will find great stories of normal people just like us who will inspire you. Our goal is that you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to move forward in life. But before we get started, one thing though, if you're listening and you find yourself really hopeless right now, send us an email at hope@thestoryfield.com so we can pray for you. Thanks for joining us today. Let's get started. Today, please welcome Dirk Smith. Dirk, man, thank you for making time. We are super honored to have you on today.
Man, it's good to be with you, Josh. I'm looking forward to the time together.
Yes. Well, we talked a little bit beforehand, and I'm just grateful because you have a powerful story, and it's okay if we ask you the hard questions. Are you okay with that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I want to mention I'm so glad to get you on the show because we had the blessing of getting some of the pray.com founders on, and working with Larry Ross said you have to hear the story of Dirk. So I was able to reach out to you and get you on, and just grateful to make time because you do have a powerful one and you're going to change some lives. So let me start with this, and I'll get into your bio in a little bit, but I want to ask you, you're really going through what I would consider one of the most terrible things a person could walk through with you and your family. So are you comfortable in kind of opening that door and talking about that?
Yeah, sure.
I want to just get into it.
Yeah. So, been married for going on 34 years, be 34 in December, actually. And in June of 2020, my wife was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, for those that don't know what ALS is. And she had been symptomatic she's been symptomatic for probably 4 years. We moved to the Nashville area in October of 18, and she was experiencing a little bit of issue with her left leg, experiencing foot drop. And after many trips to many doctors and spent lots of time at Vanderbilt, and then finally getting a diagnosis, taking a trip up to Mayo in Rochester, Minnesota. And they weren't able to diagnose right away. It was kind of interesting. They came back and they called us, and bless her heart, I mean, we kind of jokingly said, if you're going to have any procedure done or any test run, just call my wife if you're curious how it's going to go, because she's had them all. But they thought she might have Poems syndrome, which was a real rare blood disorder. And so she went through bone marrow biopsy, PET scan, CT work, blood work, more blood work. She's had more blood work. I mean, her blood been all over the place. And then on June the 5th of 2020, the same day that we met with the hematologist oncologist to hear, no, you don't have Poems, we had a Zoom meeting with her neurologist from Mayo, and they had done some gene testing, which was really the only way they could diagnose. And she was diagnosed with the C9orf72 mutating gene form of ALS. So yeah, it's I say it's our journey. It's her journey that we're sharing in it. She's a warrior, and she's fighting every day, but there's no cure, and she knows she's going home.
Yeah.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah. Well, how has that, let me ask you this way, I guess. Where have you seen the Lord show up through that process? Because if I'm in your shoes, that's so hard. I mean, it just makes me sick thinking about it. And I know there has to have had to be probably a lot of fear and, just a lot of unknowns. But You've walked through this for years now. Where has the Lord shown up that you've seen pretty clear?
Yes. And it is, it's a unique journey. And again, I'm not alone. I don't want to be on here and act like, oh, woe is me. We're there are other people going through ALS. There are people dealing with cancer. There are people who've lost kids and spouses. I mean, we live in a broken world. I mean, it's a fallen world. And Jesus told us that, in this life, you're going to have trouble. I mean, that's why you hear so much, if you spend any time in scripture and just read the gospels, just read the red letters. Even if you got a red letter edition Bible, Jesus focuses on, where's our foundation? What's it built on? Because this life is going to have trouble. So to answer your question, I think the clarity there in recognizing that this is not home. And so you see God show up obviously in people and community who have surrounded us and loved on us and held us up in prayer. I stop people when people say, I just wish there was more that I could do. I guess the least I can do is pray. And I'm thinking, no, don't say that. Don't say that the least you can do, because that's honestly the most you can do. If you've never been on the receiving end of it, it is absolutely mystical. The peace that God gives through people's prayers. And we feel them. We feel the prayers. We feel sustained by God's Spirit. We have seen people who we have prayed for and prayed about recommit their lives to Jesus. We have seen people new relationships that we have been introduced to, who come by for a visit and are impacted, again, not because it's my wife, but because it's the Spirit who is living in her. Because if you were to meet her, she's got a smile on her face. She's got a twinkle in her eye. She's still cantankerous as she's ever been. And she's her. But by the world standards, her life is awful. I mean, it has changed drastically. I mean, she was the consummate hostess. She's a great cook. She loved to be in the kitchen. She loved to serve people. She loved to host people in our home. And now she's being served. And it's a very uncomfortable place for her to be in. But at the same time, God is speaking through her as she proclaims to everyone who visits with her, this isn't where I belong. And we know that. We're all going to go through this at some time in our lives, whether it's ALS or whether it's just old age. I mean, we're all going to go into that. And I don't know what listeners' beliefs are, but I'd challenge them to really read. I found a lot of comfort in just looking at Jesus's words whenever he references somebody who passes. Okay. And we can go back to the Old Testament too. Paul then references it later as well. But Jesus says what? They have fallen asleep. They've fallen asleep. And you think through that, and if you really look at scripture, people who say, like I had a dear mentor who just passed, and he was a great storyteller. And somebody said, man, he's up there just telling stories right now. And I want to go, no, he's not. He's in absolute peaceful sleep. He is resting. So the whole RIP really is pretty accurate. Rest in peace. They're resting in peace. And we're all going to wake up at one time, and we're going to see Jesus, and we are just going to be in awe. I mean, it's going to be incredible. So when you really read Jesus, people go to sleep. And you think about it, when does time cease for us? When we're sleeping. When I'm asleep, when you're asleep, the only time I know time is when I wake up and grab my phone for me and see what time it is. Then I know how long I've been sleeping. But if I'm in a good, deep sleep, it's peaceful. It's perfect. Man, it's a great, and sleep's a little overrated for me. So when I get that 4 or 5 hours for me is typical. When I get that 4 or 5 hours, that's great. So she's been able to really speak truth to people. And I've seen God in her. I see him in her all the time. With our adult kids, we have 3 adult children who, I say children, they're adults, but they've been able to really grow through this as well. They don't, obviously this is not something you want to go through. You don't like it. It's not fun, but there's growth that happens, and there's opportunity to glorify God.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a verse. The God of comfort who gives comfort to you so you can do that for others. Have you seen him using, it sounds like already with your bride. I mean, he's done that through other people that, and I'm betting, I don't know, but I'm betting people will show up and come around you guys, just get ministered to.
Yeah.
In some way, they're just like, man, that was for me.
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly right. I watched my mom go through this. My mother passed away at the age of 66 with ovarian cancer. And I was there and able to care for her through that. And I watched her do that. And now it's like deja vu. I'm watching my wife do that as people come and they think, okay, we're coming to be an encouragement to her and to love on her. And they walk out and I walk them out the front door, and they're the ones who are crying. I mean, they're crying and saying, man, she's so strong and she's my hero and blah, blah, blah. And I think, man, that's God. That's, it's God's way of reminding all of us we have a job to do while we're here. We are here for a purpose, and that is to make disciples. And if I'm not in discipling relationships right now, I probably need to check where my allegiance is. I might not need to call myself a follower of Christ if I'm not doing that. Because, I mean, that was his final words before he left. Is, hey,
that's right.
Here's what I want you to do. Go make disciples. So, my wife and I said this, when she was diagnosed. Of course, there's tears, and we've gone through all the normal process. But we looked at each other and we said, okay, we get one shot at this. And the thing we both heard God calling us to was do it well. Do it well.
Yeah, you're almost like, I get the sense of you guys are not going to waste this.
Well, and again, I guess that would be my message to everybody. Don't waste life. Don't waste a moment. And you hear people say, be present, but it's so true. But be present with the Spirit and be present with him in every encounter you have, because we are all there to either add to the kingdom or take away. It's the church in Laodicea. There's no lukewarmness. I mean, you're either adding to or you're taking away. And we all have an opportunity on a daily basis to do that, and to remind people that, and man, all we have to do is look around at our culture today, and there's plenty of opportunity and need for speaking the truth of Jesus into people's hearts and minds. And so yeah, it's a journey, but we're not alone in it. And there are people that are journeying it. It is a very unique journey. If people don't know about ALS, not that would be a pick me up for you to Google ALS and start looking at videos. That's definitely not something I'd do if you're looking for a time of encouragement. But at the same time, it is with the people who are traveling it. I tell you, I find more people of faith in the ALS community, because again, they recognize the fragile nature of this life, and They know where the hope lies, and it doesn't lie in their 401k or their government or their political party. It relies in one entity. Hope only comes from Jesus.
Yeah, almost like you can operate in a new sense of freedom or a greater sense of freedom than, by going through this.
But we all should, Josh.
Right.
We really all should. And
that's the encouragement I hear to me, like you're talking to me right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we all quit our jobs and we quit making money. It's just, what's my purpose? Why am I doing that? What am I doing with it? And what am I doing with the interactions that God puts me in? The number one is, if we are blessed to have kids, if we're not discipling our children and their friends, shame on us. They're not yours. They're on loan. Man, make disciples of your kids and disciple their kids. Make your house the place that their friends come, and then disciple them and disciple their parents. Everybody needs Jesus. All we have to do is look around us. This is a hopeless culture we're living in right now. People are desperate, whether they realize it or not, but we are the ones who have that job. That's our task. We have to take that light. We're supposed to be the light and the salt. And I'm like, man, folks, you hear all the stories. The salt doesn't work when it's in the shaker. The light doesn't work when it's, the flashlight's not on, however you want to say it. We say these things over and over and over again. But, Lifeway did a recent study, which I found fascinating, but yet very, very discouraging. They said they reached out to Christians. Now, I would argue that that's not who they talked to, because they asked them, what keeps you from sharing the gospel of Jesus with people? And I won't go through the list. There was a list of 3 of them. But the last one was amazing. The last one was, I just forget. And I thought, what? How do you forget to talk about the person who has transformed your very existence?
Yeah.
How is that possible? It's not, I argue. You didn't talk to Christians. You talked to posers who, are putting the bumper sticker on and wearing the t-shirts, but they're not transformed. I don't have any problem talking about, as I'm sitting here right now, and we talked earlier with my Eagles hat on, I don't have a problem repping for the Philadelphia Eagles or the Philadelphia Phillies who are going to be in the World Series. Why am I uncomfortable talking about Jesus? The Eagles, whatever. They don't mean anything. It's fun. It's a sports team, whatever. Jesus is my Lord. If he is, then shouldn't it show? Shouldn't
it's going to come out. It's going to come out of you.
You would think, but it's amazing how it doesn't, and how people are afraid to talk about Jesus. And I'm thinking, why would you want to keep that to yourself? As we travel this journey, and we talked about, as we travel this journey with ALS, I think, man, how harsh for me to keep Jesus to myself, because I know there are other people dealing with this. I don't know how they do it. How do you do it without Jesus, without his Spirit living in you? That's cruel. You talk about a lack of love. That's a lack of love.
Hey, y'all. I just want to make an observation. When I see someone going through a legal situation, it seems like there are way too many unknowns. Well, the Allen firm provides legal guidance so that you can make a great decision, come to a resolution, and be at peace. For more information about the Allen firm, visit allenlawfirm.com.
Man, that's good. Thank you for sharing. Wow. I'm so encouraged. It's like, where do we go? That's just beautiful. So is there kind of some practical advice for people who are trying to love somebody going through something tough like this? Is there some clear do's? Do this and don't do this? Because I don't know if I would know what to come and how to really interact I feel like I feel like it would be, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I help, and am I just getting in the way? That
Yeah.
type of deal. Is there some clear do's and don'ts that have kind
Yeah.
of surfaced up?
See, maybe you and I work together. I'm not a writer, but as an attorney, I'm sure you are. That's one of the gifts of attorneys. But I've thought about writing a book, the do's and don'ts of what to say and not to say when a friend of yours or somebody close to you is dealing with grief or somebody dying. Here's the don'ts. I'll go through the quick don'ts. You don't walk up and say, man, I know you're praying that she would just pass quickly so she could get on to that great peace. Well, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I'm not praying for that. She's my wife for
Right.
34 years. I want her here with me. Part of grief is love. I mean, the reason you grieve is because you love. And then to say, the other one that is kind of funny is just amazing is, well, I know in time you'll get over this.
Oh, yeah. Right.
What do you mean I'm going to get over it? That means I'm going to stop loving her?
Right.
That's ridiculous too. Honestly, the do's, just be there. Just
Yeah.
be there. Just be present. Just
Does that help though? Like the stop bys and the
It does.
and
It
check
does.
ons
As
and
long
the
as long as it's not long,
yeah.
don't wear out your welcome. The people who don't know when to leave, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because then you start looking at your watch and saying, wow, look at the time. I'm sure you got stuff you need to do.
You're like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, thanks for coming by, but boy, didn't you have a list of something? Didn't you say you're out running some errands? You're probably behind on schedule, aren't you? So just let them know ahead of time. Hey, we want to come by, pray with you. Prayer is essential. Prayer is absolutely essential. It's essential in our own lives. I mean, we need to be praying constantly. People ask me about my prayer life, and I joke and I kind of show my age, I guess, because I say, if you've seen Fiddler on the Roof and the character Tevye, that's my prayer life. I mean, God and I just have an ongoing conversation, and there are times I apologize, and I think, why am I apologizing? He knows, because he and I have had some words. I mean, we've had some words about this whole diagnosis, but there are do's and don'ts, and there are people who they want to be churchy in their conversation with you. And recently, a guy said about Wendy, he said, I'm kind of envious of her, and kind of rejoice that she'll be home soon, and I'm just kind of envious that she'll be home before me. And I'm like, okay, dude, really? You obviously have not seen this journey. You want to go through ALS? Man, if I had a superpower right now, I mean, this was the unchristian thought of me, I'd just, boom, I'll give it to you. Here you go. Now are you envious?
How envious are you now?
Yeah, how envious are you
now?
now?
I think we say stuff and just in thinking that's a good idea, but man, that's just missing the mark. Yeah, we mean well.
And so what I would say is, I mean, I just laugh. Honestly, I laugh at them, and grace and peace. And I know people mean well, but if people are listening, the best thing you can do is just let people know you care and that you're praying, but really pray. Don't say praying for you and then don't pray. Don't do that. Don't do that. And reach out and say, hey, just want to come by, short visit, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just wanted to hug your neck, tell you we love you. And honestly, one of the best gifts we've gotten, the best things that have happened for us is somebody has ALS or somebody's sick. Food is a challenge. It's hard to cook for two people anyway, but with a disease like ALS, her palate just changes. I mean, it's a neuromuscular disease, so her taste buds change. So what once used to, I've known this woman for 34 years, and what used to taste good doesn't taste good anymore, or she can't eat. And so we had our life group at church just give us a bunch of DoorDash and Uber Eats, gift cards. And it was great because you're just in the moment. Okay, what sounds good? And she says, this sounds good. And you think, man, I don't want to eat that. What am I going to eat? And so you can't cook. So that was a real creative thing that people did. But, Josh, I would say the main thing is just be present. Don't walk away either. I think for some people, they don't know what to say, what to do. Just reach out every now and then, text message, phone call, quick, cards, go old school, actually pull out a piece of paper and, write a note.
Thank you for, that helps me just know, like, how do you walk with somebody, and to be encouraged that prayer works. Because I think a lot of times, I'm probably speaking for several people, but I know for myself, like, we pray and talk to the Lord, but it's just like, I don't know, a lot of times, maybe I'm not even believing what I'm asking. So that's
true.
helpful to hear on your end. Well, I need to get into your bio. Thank you for sharing that, and we can touch on it again. So currently you're serving as the Vice President of EEM, which is Eastern European Missions. And EEM publishes, prints, and distributes Bibles and Bible-based materials in 30 plus countries in 20 plus languages, impacting, and I love this, 4,000 public schools and 4,500,000-ish public school students. That's amazing. And under your lead, Dirk, you have grown the Bible distribution from 200,000 to almost 2 million in 10 years, and have increased giving almost 400%, 366%. Now, I love this fact. The last part of this, I want you to talk about it. This is really cool to me, especially just doing some nonprofit work. You've been able to decrease the overhead in such a way where that 90% of every dollar will go toward the actual work. You have 10% overhead. That's a big deal, and that's a lot of money. A lot of money. So thanks. Can you talk a little bit about EEM and segue that also, Dirk, into we want to hear about your story, like where you grew up. Let's backtrack now. So we're reversing this thing on you a little bit. So
okay,
talk about EEM and then get us back to your story, where you grew up and this type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So EEM, great ministry. This is our 61st year, and this ministry started with 14, 20-year-olds who had just graduated their undergraduate degrees at Abilene Christian College at the time, and in Abilene, Texas, and decided they were going to go behind the Iron Curtain, and when it was the Soviet Union, and teach people about Jesus. Only to get there, and the guy who I really credit with being the entrepreneur for Jesus, for EEM, Gwen Hensley, he and his wife, Gail, he made a trip behind the Iron Curtain, came back and said, Gail, this is an impossible task. How in the world do we teach people about Jesus? They don't have Bibles in their own language. How do we do this? So he kind of turned it on its head and turned it into a publishing and printing operation. Of course, back then they were thrilled to smuggle, 100, 150 Bibles across checkpoints. And now today, the ministry has grown to where we, last year, 1.5 million Bibles and Bible-based materials. Yeah, God has grown this, and I don't want to sit here and pat us on the back. This is God's ministry that we call EEM. That is, I want to be clear about that. This is His rescue mission. And 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago now, this is my 11th year with the organization. We got our first request for Bibles in public schools in the nation of Ukraine, of all nations, with all that's going on in the news now. And so we researched that and found out that it was all the denominations coming together, all the different tribes, all the different Jesus tribes coming together and deciding, hey, we just need to teach the Bible. If we want to change our nation back to a biblical Christian worldview, we just need to provide the Bible to our children and just teach the Bible, not our traditions, not that traditions are bad, but they are what they are. They're traditions.
Unstuck Coaches hates it when movement and progress in a person's life or business is stuck, or frozen, or slowed, or just stopped altogether. Well, we have found a solution. Unstuckcoaches.com. They offer a variety of coaching services to get you or your business moving again. Check out unstuckcoaches.com.
And so they started teaching this class. It was an elective, and it was called Christian Ethics. It's called Christian Ethics. But they had 99% of the kids taking the class. And they started noticing
Wow.
where they were teaching the class, the test scores were going up and the discipline problems were going down. Now, there's rocket science for you. So they decided, man, we need to make this available across the whole country. So over the time that we started working with them, we've now, well, right before the war broke out, we had put Bibles in close to 3/4 of their public schools. Now, tell me this war is not a spiritual war.
Yeah.
This is a nation that has been a beacon of light. Now, we understand this term because we live in the U.S. and it's a very U.S. term, but they are like the Bible Belt for Europe. And because of them and their example, we're now putting Bibles in the public schools in Croatia to the tune of 700,000 books over the last 2 years. Romania, Bulgaria, we just made a delivery in North Macedonia of 225,000 Bibles, with another 225,000 coming in 2023. So this is what people can get involved in. And when I say we hold our prices down, we do. I mean, with all the supply chain issues going on, I mean, I don't have a theology degree. I've got an MBA. And so I'm a business guy. And my view is this is a business. It's God's business, but I got to run it efficiently, because the more efficiently we run this, that's the more Bibles out the door. And we don't have to say no to the increasing requests, because literally every year, Josh, we have to say no. I mean, we have to pick and choose. And for a guy where sleep is overrated, it really gets overrated then, because I realize there are people who are begging for a Bible in their language that aren't getting it. So yeah, it's a fun work. It's amazing to watch what God is doing. And literally we do on a daily basis. We just sit back and just in awe, absolutely in awe of the doors that he's opening up. But yeah, and we are a publisher. You know, a lot of people think, oh, so you translate the Bible? No, we work with good translators. We get good translations. You know, we're very spoiled in the English speaking world. We have over 600 different translations of the Bible. In the nations that we're working in, they're lucky if they have 2. So, you know, I jokingly say to people, well, you do know what the best translation of the Bible is, right? And they'll look at me like, no, what is it? The one that they'll read. That's the best translation. So we give them what they ask for. And because, again, we believe in the power of the Spirit. The Spirit transforms, not us.
Yeah.
It's not about
Golly. Just from the logistical side, how do you guys do y'all have places all over, all over the world, all over kind of Eastern Europe, to where you're, taking orders, shipping, logistics, getting things in and out? Like, that's a little bit bigger than things I'm used to being involved in. So give me some help the systems part of me relax a little bit. How do y'all do this?
So this is another God thing. You'd be amazed. So our full-time staff in Vienna, Austria, which that's where our European headquarters is, we have 5 FTEs, 5 people do all that. And again, technology helps. You know, we've got our editing director, who is just brilliant. Scott is one of my heroes. He works with technology, and has done some amazing things with being able to edit and do layout and design work very, very quickly. And then we believe in creating economy, Josh. So we work with printers in every region that we distribute in. So when we're distributing in Ukraine, we're printing in Ukraine. It puts their people to work, and they need that. They need jobs. And so we feel like that's an extra way that we can minister. Secondly, it holds down on distribution costs. We don't pay import tax. We don't have to, there are a lot of things that hold that cost down to where we've been able to maintain, even with all the inflation, global inflation going on and supply chain issues that we've seen, we're still holding steady at $5 provides one book all in. Somebody gives $5. I mean, give up a cup of coffee and you just change somebody's life eternally. And from what we've seen, not just one life, because that book gets shared, and it's typically a 3 to 4 to 5, ripple effect that happens. So yeah, the logistics are interesting. We've got an amazing team. My counterpart, our VP of European operations, amazing guy, Polish by birth, does a great job. An amazing project manager. We've got 150 projects going this year. And he was bemoaning the fact that 2 of them were a little bit behind schedule. And I thought, dude, really? You gotta be kidding me. I mean, that's like project management, you're in the A team here. And so we are blessed. And again, that's another statement that this is God's ministry, because the team that he's assembled, if you could meet him, you would go, yeah, this is definitely God's ministry. Where'd you get these people? So it is fun. It's a blessing to work with them. It's a great team. It's a great team.
So how can people listening support? Because they may not know about you guys, and that may be exactly something they would love to support and send a bunch of Bibles overseas. What's a good website, or where do they donate, or how can they support you guys?
Yeah, our website is real easy. It's just eem.org, and they'll see up at the top banner for we're in the middle of, or we just started 1st of September. We started our annual fund campaign that we call $1 Million Sunday. And the goal is $3.5 million to provide 700,000 Bibles in about 20 different languages. So they can go there. They can give securely online. It's very secure. If they go to the donate, they can send a check. They can, gives you all the information. It's pretty easy right there. So it's just eem.org.
Okay, yeah, and we'll try to link up that to the notes and whatnot, because we'd like to see that happen. How long are you tracking on the goal, like for the big September?
It goes through year end.
Okay, perfect.
So it started September 1 and it will end December 31.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing about that. Yeah. What work? Well, where'd you grow up, Dirk? We're doing this backwards, but
give
us your backstory.
Yeah, so I was born in Philadelphia. So sorry for all the people that are in Texas listening to that. Yes, I am an Eagles fan. Huge Eagles fan. But yeah, I was born in Philadelphia, grew up in South Jersey. And so I grew up in the part of New Jersey that is the reason New Jersey is called the Garden State. Lots of farmland, cranberry bogs, all that stuff. But my kind of my background, my grandfather was Abraham Klein. So half of this body is Jewish. He was Jewish Businessman of the Year in New York City in 1972. So I used to spend a lot of time in New York with him. In fact, I won't go deep into it, but my mom had a real bad accident and was in a coma for a while when I was about 4 months old. So I lived with my maternal grandparents. So that grandfather was really my dad until I was about 4 years old. And I was able to come back and be with I was the youngest of 3. So grew up in that surrounding, which is probably where I got my love for business, watching him and really spending a lot of time with him. But yeah, grew up there, graduated high school in New Jersey, and then went off to college, did my undergrad at a small private school in Arkansas, Christian school, and then got out and got into healthcare consulting. Did that for about 11 years, and then management consulting back up in the Northeast, working with the VC community, venture capital community, with their Series A round companies, which was a lot of fun. Always something new, always changing, very fast paced, which I enjoyed. And then my alma mater called and said, "Hey, we need help raising money." And I'll be honest, I think I'd rather run razor blades up my fingernails. Who in their right mind wants to do that? And so I politely turned them down, and they came back again and said, "Hey, listen, don't turn us down. We pray about it." And so my good godly wife said, "It's one thing we haven't done. We haven't prayed about it." So we started praying about it, and I was going through this a little bit of an epiphany kind of time, and just in my life, and saying, okay, when God calls me home, whenever that is, 80 years old or whatever, do I want to look back on my life? And again, this is just me personally. It's not saying anything against other people who are doing what I was doing, presently. But for me personally, I just said, do I want to look back and say, man, I made a lot of people a lot of money? Because that's what I was doing. I was streamlining organizations, and helping people roll out intellectual property, taking them through IPOs, and just making people a lot of money. And it was a challenge. I thought, but how do I use my business acumen for kingdom work? How do you do that? I don't want to preach. I don't want to be a preacher. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a pastor somewhere. And so my wife said, well, maybe this is it, because it's a Christian school. And I thought, nope, dear, I think you're wrong. That's not it. I don't think that's what God's telling us. Maybe he's telling you that, but he's not telling me that. And, but we started praying about it, and, it was incredible. We threw out fleece literally, and they came back wet and dry, and finally God torched the altar altogether, and to where we knew, okay, God's not saying this is the only thing I want you to do, but I'm good with this. You can serve me. People always ask me, and we lived in this college town for 14 years, and had college students come to me all the time and say, man, Dirk, I just wish I knew what God's will for my life was. Do I take this job? Do I take this job? And I'd say, God doesn't care whether you move to Seattle or Dallas and make 90,000 or 85. He doesn't care. God's will for your life is the same as it is for mine. And that is that you glorify him regardless of your earthly circumstances.
That's so good, Dirk.
Stop with that. That is messed up theology. So anyway, we knew, okay, well, it's not about the job. It's an opportunity to glorify God in some way. I'll be honest with you. I called it my 7 years in the desert, because it was I was blessed with one of the fleece that I threw out. God plopped right in my lap, answered a prayer, because I didn't know anything about higher education fundraising. And God plopped in my lap the best mentor anybody could ever have. And that was the senior vice president of development at Texas A&M. And Texas was part of my region. So I used to go down for 7 years. I'd go down 3 or 4 times a year, sit at his feet. So I was like in grad school for 7 years. And he just passed. He just passed on Monday. Just passed away. He was in his 80s. A great man. So I did that for 7 years, and really got frustrated. Finally, just said, "Man, I can't do this anymore." I'm beating my head up against the wall, and EEM came knocking, and I will never forget. Our daughter at the time was 18 years old, and I was down in my office, my home office. And I'd whittled my decision down to 2 opportunities. EEM was one, and another one was a for-profit, going back into for-profit, stock options, ownership. A guy came to me, and then they did great. If I'd have done that, I'd be set for life right now financially. But, I was weighing these 2 opportunities, and my daughter came down and she said, "Hey, Dad, Mom said, you guys are really praying about what you're going to do next. And you got 2 opportunities. Do you mind if I know what they are? And if I ask you, and I said, no, it's, you're 18. I mean, yeah, sure. We're an open family. So I tell her about both of them. And I will never forget. And this is how God speaks to you. This is how he speaks. If you listen. She looked at me and she said, I don't get it. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I don't understand. Why is this a dilemma? Why is this a decision?
Wow.
And I said, what do you mean? She said, Dad, my entire life, when I get up, you're up reading your Bible. And you talked about how your mom always read her Bible. And you've always told us you can read other books. Reading, you need to read. But you run everything through God's word. Everything goes through that lens. And now you have the opportunity to provide Bibles to people who have never had a Bible in their language. I don't see where the decision is.
Wow.
And she turned and walked away.
She just mic dropped you like,
oh, huge.
Yeah.
And I will never forget sitting there in my office. And I looked straight up and I said, okay, I hear you. I get it. I did. I called EEM and I said, okay, let's talk. Let's work this out. And I haven't looked back since. It's just been, it's a first time, honestly. I tell people I don't have a job. I was
about to say, do you enjoy what you do?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes too much, and that's been the challenge. I tend to, if my wife were hearing this and saying I tend to be a borderline workaholic, she'd say, no, you were, and definitely could be a workaholic. But, I have to watch that because, I do what I do because I have to. I just have to.
Gosh. And you have 3 kiddos. Do you have twins?
I do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I got a daughter. My daughter's 30 and my twin boys are 27.
What is it like being a parent, of that age range?
Man, I would tell you it was a whole lot easier when they were little.
That's not encouraging me, man.
Yeah. Because, when they were little, you could say, sit down, don't move. And they would do it, and you at least had this illusion of control, but, man, now you just wear your knees out. And I love them all 3, but you can offer advice when they want it. And, it's a transition. That's fun. Every stage is fun. You just enjoy every stage. And it's great now because they are, watching them mature and become all in disciples for Jesus, and to be bold in their faith. And that's one of the things that their mom's journey has really done. We've watched that very vividly in their lives. Because they're dealing with something that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to deal with up close and personal, and kind of an introspective look at themselves to say, what am I doing here? What impact do I want to make? Because they're looking at their mom, and I mean, she's impacted thousands of lives, and still is. So, I would tell you, it's fun. And it is fun when you have, they get to that age where you have deep conversations with them. That's fun. And you get to see really how God looks at us. When your kids do something, not because you tell them to, but you can tell it's coming from within. And it's an outpouring of maybe some seed that you've planted, and it's grown. And you just sit back and go, man, that's cool. Look at that. That's awesome. And that's when you thank God, and you say, we have not been perfect parents by any stretch of the imagination. And that's why you just spend time on your knees praying, and God makes up the difference, for all your screw ups. If he's in the middle of it all. And that's the thing I would say is you keep him in the middle of it. And
Are they
and
in proximity to you guys at all? I mean, do you get to see them a
it's
little bit?
it's really a blessing, Josh. They live 5 minutes from us, all three of them. So
Man, that's
we have a
cool.
standing Thursday night is family dinner night here at the house,
How special.
and they all come to the house. My wife doesn't get out for church. She's kind of homebound, so we watch our church online, but we do it all together as a family and take communion together, and it's been a real blessing. And we eat together on Sundays. So yeah,
That's super
all
special.
right here.
Well, you've made a comment, and maybe in some stuff we've talked about public speaking, how that replenishes you. Now, what is wrong with you that you'd actually put that on? I've never heard anybody say that ever. What do you like about public speaking?
I get energy from people, and getting up in front of people we used to do, and I'm thankful we don't do them. When I came to EEM, I inherited this. They did these events all over the country, and I became the speaker, and I did one, and then they said, yeah, why don't you do all these? And so I started traveling, and I mean, it literally, I would kiss my wife at the beginning of March and say, babe, I'll see you in June. And it was kind of what we called event season. But there's something magical about speaking and really praying about it and feeling the Spirit come through you, to where, you kind of have an outline of what you're going to say, but God gives you the ability to read the people that are there and to know, okay, where do I need to go deeper? What's resonating, what's not resonating, and watching their faces and getting that feedback, and then just watching the Spirit move on a crowd. I mean, to me, that was fun. That was fun, is watching. I could see God move in ways, and then afterwards seeing people getting ideas of, man, now I'm going to go do this. You'd see it go into action. You'd see the Spirit move them into action. And so that was always fun. And yeah, I've enjoyed presentations, teaching, anything like that. But I don't miss, I miss some of it. I don't miss the traveling.
Yeah, traveling would be hard.
It was.
Yeah, I bet it would be fun to be a audience member when you're speaking. I mean, I would show up for that. I mean, you have a lot of energy and a lot of passion. So,
well, I mean, and I'm a storyteller, and Jesus was a storyteller. And I just look at him and I think, when you understand the Jewishness behind the parables and really what was going on, man, he was the master. Oh my word. Absolute master. Nobody holds a candle to what,
that's amazing.
Because you just go back and you just read the parables, and they still speak, and they go in so many different directions. And he was magnificent. So we know story impacts people.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed, discovering a story, being a part of living a story, and then being able to share that story, share what God is telling through that story.
Oh, that's good. Well, let's wrap it up. And there's a question or two that I usually like to ask people, and you have weaved the answer already through this interview. But if you had to give some encouragement to people, and or if you could say, like, this is what I think is my life message. Didn't have to be super articulated perfect, but what would you say? What comes to mind is, here's my life message, and or here's a really encouragement to people. Here's my challenging encouragement to them.
Give up, and give up completely to Jesus. Just let go of the reins. Quit trying to control. Give up and take his lead. But man, spend time. I'll tell you, if there's anything that's plaguing our nation, is biblical illiteracy. We don't read. And I can't tell you how many churches I've been to where I just barely ever hear the Bible talked about. I mean, we got stories going on, and get into God's word, get into the Bible, and don't read it to prove what you think you already know. Man, just open yourself up, give up, read it, and let him speak to you. You know, we are not people who like to be quiet, but I can tell you, my day starts about anywhere from 4:30 to 5 every morning. And, man, I wouldn't trade the time that I spend just being quiet. And, I had a period of time in my life when I was younger. I had one of my mentors I had lunch with, who was a great man. He was the president of Cigna Property and Casualty, and a great man of faith. And I was dealing with what I called insomnia at the time. And I'll never forget sitting down at lunch one day with him, and I said, "Hey, Jerry, you ever had insomnia?" He looked at me and he said, "Define insomnia." I thought, "Now, dude, I thought you were a smart man. What are you talking about?" I said, "You can't sleep. I can't sleep." He said, No. I mean, do you fall asleep and then wake up, or you can't get to sleep?" And I said, "No, the first. I mean, I go to sleep, but then I wake up about 2:30, 3:00, and then I can't get back to sleep." And I'll never forget. He said, "You remember the story in the Bible? Eli, Samuel?" I said, "Yeah." And I did. I thought, "You're a crazy old guy. What are you talking about?" I said, "I don't think God's talking to me." He said, No. Just hear me out. Just get up and pick up something that you're reading, preferably the Bible. And I said, "I'm not telling you you're going to hear an audible voice, but just let God talk to you. Just let God speak. And somewhere in a short period of time, you're going to remember what he said, and it's going to hit home." I've done that for 30 years. And
That's good.
God doesn't let you down.
And he'll wake you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I wake up, I get up and I just,
you're like, "Here I am." Yeah,
here I am. And it's in those moments. And again, my message to people would be, man, don't just say you're putting God first, do it. And I'm not saying it's going to, man, I obviously don't do that well. I mean, nobody's going to be perfect at that, but just be intentional about it. And recognize you're going to mess up, but man, embrace the grace that we get for that, and recognize that he's making up the difference. But we all have we've got a job to do. And when we look around, it's real easy to point fingers at our culture going to hell in a handbasket. But man, I got to tell you, there's 3 fingers pointing back at us, the church.
Mm-hmm.
And God's saying, I left this job for you. What are you doing? And it's because we don't read, we don't pray, we don't, we go and we punch our clock and we say, "Hey, I went to church." We even use wrong language. No, we are the church. We don't go to church. You can't even do that. And it's a desperate need for his people to decide, no, I'm going to be an all-in disciple. I'm all in. And get ready, because it's not going to be easy.
Yeah. No, that's good, Dirk. Thank you for making time today. Thank you for being so real and so honest, and really encouraging and challenging us in a really healthy, helpful way.
Well, good to be with you, man. I appreciate your heart, and I appreciate what you do with this podcast, and I appreciate what you decided to do. You don't have to do this. And so I appreciate, your transparency, and you're being very real as well. So
thank you. Well, thank you. Well, we'll link up EEM, and let's get to celebrate with you as y'all raise 700,000 Bibles and send them out. So thank you.
All right.
Really look forward to following you and your company, and seeing what happens. So
thanks, Josh.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for joining us on this latest edition to the Storyfield podcast. We hope that you have been challenged, inspired, and ready to take that next step, whatever that is. If you know someone with an amazing story that needs to be heard, send us an email at info@thestoryfield.com. Have a fantastic day, and we can't wait for you to join us on the next episode of The Storyfield.